Start of the post game show. I don't know. I'm tired.
Let's start by saying Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. Celtics didn't hold up their end of the bargain on St. Patrick's Day of all days, but we'll try not to let it ruin the day. I'll say this: I'm having a better St. Patrick's Day than I did last St. Patrick's Day when it was like the start of COVID and Tom Brady was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm out." Like, so
was that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it on St. Patrick's Day?
It was on St. Patrick's Day, and I'll never forget it. I'm not going to get into it, but I'll just never forget how bad that day was. But today's better. Celtics couldn't hold it up on their end, but we're moving on.
What do you guys? Do you want to start at the beginning or start at the end?
And
want to just skip the game?
Well, the first half was a disaster.
Should we get right to Bobby crying about they have to do something, or do we want to wait a little on that?
We can do that.
5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes on the game.
All right. Let's start at the end. Again, the end matters. It's hard. Look, I don't even know. I mean, they clearly didn't come out to play, and they were just sleepwalking. I thought it was clear. I felt like they read the articles written about them last night. And like they tried to play, I don't know what they tried to do, but they jacked a ton of threes. And I know that was a criticism that they weren't taking enough of them. And it looked like they went out of their way to take a bunch of threes. They just weren't really falling. They just didn't, the effort on the first half was just atrocious. I mean, that was a really bad, that first quarter was just awful. They just didn't show up. We'll get into I know you guys said start with the late. I did want to start at the beginning. Like, how do you come out like that?
A little tired, maybe. I mean, I know that's like an excuse, obviously, but it was the second night of a back-to-back on the road. No Kemba Walker. They stink to begin with. What else? Again, slow start from Tatum and Brown, right? I mean, isn't that what it always comes down to? I mean, Tatum was on fire there late in the game. I mean, he was all-star Tatum, but again, it feels like it takes these guys a half to get into the game.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen did it in the third, Tatum in the fourth, but nothing in the first half. I mean, they can't shoot and they can't defend, so you can't come out and play with no effort. But go ahead, Josue.
No, I think you can say that, but also, I mean, let's face it, and I don't know this anonymous player that said it. I mean, Goodman had the scoop, right? Like these guys have a target on their back. So I think when teams see Tatum and Brown struggling, they just get amped up. I mean, listen, Collin, Sexton, Darius, Garland. I'm like, these are two proven scorers. And you don't think they've done their homework? I mean, let's face it. This isn't the first time guys in the backcourt have gone nuts against the Celtics. And you get that opportunity in the first quarter. And I just think they just not – listen, teams aren't afraid of the Celtics. I think that's what it is. So if the Celtics don't come out with that intensity on defense, then they see the green light and they go nuts, specifically on the road. And especially when you have top-notch score. Well, okay, listen, we're not going to call them top-notch scores, but, I mean, they'll put up 20 a night any given night. And when they see the Celtics and Jayson Tatum, they see an opportunity to prove themselves. And I think that's what we saw. I mean, listen, they got out to a slow start, Tatum and Brown, but also let's not forget the fact that the Cavs punched them in the mouth and they grabbed that lead quickly. And they had a steady lead throughout most of that first half. I mean, they were comfortable out there. The Celtics don't make teams uncomfortable. That's the problem.
Yeah, they don't get out in transition enough. I think quite a few of their problems stem from that slow start. So Marcus Smart had to end up taking most of the offensive responsibilities throughout this one. And we often see how that goes. It got them back into it a little bit late, but it wasn't a recipe for success. And I thought once you get behind on the offensive end, you lose some of that defensive intensity. So both their issues on both sides of the floor leaked into each other, specifically for Smart, who I thought was so bad defensively in this one, getting torched by those guards who can be great on some nights. I think those guys have potential, Sexton and Garland, but the ceiling's not massive for either of them. I don't see Lillard or high-level guards for either of those guys. They're quality guards. They're inefficient. They shoot in the low 40s. They're 38% three-point shooters, so sometimes they can go off from that aspect. But the defense wasn't good enough tonight, and a large part of it was because they were jacking so many shots. They weren't moving offensively. They were missing a ton of shots, so they were giving feed outs for Cleveland to get out in transition. And as they've done all season. They gave up points in the paint after points in the paint.
Look, the stat of the night is the Jays took 50 shots, okay? They were 5 for 23 from 3, okay? Just inefficient offense, okay? They're just jacking threes and they just didn't hit.
Missing free throws still.
Everything.
A couple games ago they did that as well.
That's those are the stat lines of guys who put up 20 something on losing teams. That's what you see, and those are loser stat lines. Okay, and they both. And it's unfair. I mean, again, they played well against Utah, better than they did tonight. They both played not great tonight, and they just jacked a ton of shots. They didn't go in, and that's what you have. I
didn't think they shot awful. They had it just really, really cold in the first half. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, if you look at the 2 3-pointers, Jaylen Brown was 2 for 10. So obviously that's horrific. But aside from that, I wasn't like, oh my God, these guys are.
No, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they pass to people, we're like, what the hell are they having Grant shoot for? They're screwed. They're screwed.
We want them to shoot, but if they're not shooting 40 to 50%, then a game like this happens. Especially if you're not playing defense that you're capable of playing. It felt like in the second half they came alive, but I give credit to the Cavs. They didn't, they didn't give up. They kept hitting big shots too, and they were aggressive, and Sexton got a little bit going there later in the game once he was quiet for a bit. So I mean, you give a bad team hope, they're not really a bad team anymore, and that's kind of what the Celtics did and what they've done.
Let me ask you this, for anybody. I understand the conundrum here with the Jays is, of course, we argue when they don't. I mean, we blame them when they don't shoot. We blame them when they do. They're in a tough spot. But I don't know if they understand the concept of making your team better in terms of that's kind of what it comes down to. It's one thing to say to just decide to not shoot on this possession versus actively trying to work other people into the offense. Do you think when those guys have the ball that their primary thought is, how am I going to get the ball to somebody in a scoring position on this play? Or they're thinking, how am I going to get mine? And not mine because they want the stats, mine because that's how they're wired to play. Jaylen Brown, when he starts to go, he's not looking for a dump off. I mean, how many times have you seen him start going to the basket and he dishes ever? Very, very rarely. Okay, it's a straight go. So that's why I think people don't get, sometimes they'll get some assist numbers and it happens, but again, there's a difference between just not shooting every time down and actively trying to make your teammates better. I don't know that they're doing it enough. I don't know how those guys would do. If it went a little differently. I really don't know.
No, I'm with you, John. I agree with that. I think you're spot on because I think a lot
they have
of
tunnel vision when they have the ball. That's it.
I think, put it this way, going into that fourth quarter, and listen, I get it. Tatum went 5 for 5 in that beginning, stretch of that fourth quarter. You're like, okay, here we go. Here comes the Celtics. But at the same time, you knew going into that fourth quarter, these guys aren't going to look to their teammates and say, all right, let's all, get together and try to come back here, because they're like, listen, this is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We have to take over this one, all right? This isn't, one of the top teams in the NBA, so now it's up to us to take over. And I definitely saw that. But honestly, John, I'm thinking that maybe these two could pull it off tonight. I'll be honest. I'll keep it 100 because honestly, Jaylen Brown, that fifth one in a row, he gave that look to Jayson Tatum. I was like, you know what, Jaylen, I respected that because he recognized that Tatum was hot. And you know what? I got to go in the third quarter, but I'm going to keep Tatum going. And I thought that was really, that was a good representation of their relationship in the sense of that they were able to work off of each other. But in the end of the day, when the Cavs really got going, they panicked and they took bad shots, So yes, they're not in that spot where you can say, okay, Tatum and Brown are going to save the day, 9 times out of 10, and that's a problem for this team, obviously, because we're talking about a 500 team and they rely heavily on those two all-stars. So when they're up against a double-digit deficit in the fourth quarter, it's not always guaranteed. Even if Jayson Tatum goes 5 for 5 to start the quarter, that the Celtics are going to be able to pull that one out.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the offense is kind of set up for those limitations that they have in those games. It's a ton of isolation. It's a ton of direct action. And you see Tatum and Brown get most of their assists off either kickouts in the lane when the defense collapses, maybe some rolling bigs here or there, specifically when Rob's in the game. But there isn't a high level of movement. And that starts with them, but it also stems from other players who are more stagnant around them. Guys that don't move, guys that aren't positionally aware on the floor. Smart helps that somewhat. I think we've seen the offense get a little better since his return, especially since he can facilitate. But beyond that, that's it.
But why move, though? That's the thing. This is where it gets like, do you see them hitting a lot of? I mean, outside of Rob, who and Marcus, who find guys going back door and things like that, and are looking. I mean, the two guys who try to set people up, amazingly, are Smart and Rob Williams. Which is unreal to me. But it is.
Wow, first Rob Williams mentioned.
How many guys are cutting because they think like, oh, Tatum's going to find me? Like nobody. Like you talk about stagnation. Like I just don't think you do that. We've all played some level of basketball to the point where like who you're on the court with, and you're like, I make a sharp cut here and I get my man leaning and I go back door. He's going to find me. He's going to, so you're looking for these opportunities. You're like, this is how I'm going to get the ball in my hands. I just don't know what the point of it is here. This is an isolation offense. I mean, you look at the end of the game and how this goes down. It's 100-96. What happens? They hand the ball to Tatum. He's dribbling against three guys trapped in the corner. That whole possession, you're like, this is going to end badly. And he takes a really forced shot. They go the other way and score. Then Brown misses a friggin' early in the shot clock 3. Okoro with the dunk and 1 ball game. That's it. 4 goes to 9, and that was it.
Right.
Just ugly stuff. And again, you want them taking the shots, but I mean, the degree of difficulty on the shots, the forces, never looking around for other people, and again, I get it. There's plenty in the comments right now saying, what do you want them to do? I don't know. You don't really know. It seems like they're cursed either way.
Yeah. No, that's sort of spot on here, because when you think about it in those situations, I mean, they're not going to look to those guys unless there's four seconds on the shot clock and they're triple teamed. I mean, let's face it, guys, those role players, that's when they're ready to catch and shoot, because otherwise they know that at the end of the day, Tatum and Brown, especially when they're in panic mode, are gonna try to take things into their own hands. They're only looking for their teammates and those opportunities when there's little to no more time left on the shot clock.
Yeah, I don't know. People are mad here in the comments. It is hard to blame the Jays. You're not. Again, they're graded on a curve, guys. You're either two stars that can transcend, some mediocre lineups and get your team through tough times, or you're the two guys who get stats on a bad team. You're one of those two, right? Every team has a couple of ball players like this. Not every team, but there's a lot of teams with a tandem of stars right now, and some are able, and some have better supporting cast than others. But right now they're trending towards just being able to just do this with this group and not much else. I know they need a facelift, and I know, Bobby, you're dying for something here. I don't know what makes this better right now. I really don't know. I don't know that one other player standing around waiting for his turn to score. I don't know if that makes it better.
Bobby's about to trade the whole bench right now.
I don't know.
Bobby's about to trade the whole second unit. Get him out of here.
I don't know what else to do at this point, because what's going on right now isn't working. So we can have that discussion again later, but it's one of two directions at this point. You either free up younger players on this roster for more opportunity, more minutes, and hope that they can fill those roles better, or you consolidate minutes of a Grant, of a Semi, of those guys who, again, fairly empty minutes tonight, especially Semi in that starting lineup. That starting lineup, I know going into the game before this, that had actually been their best lineup that had played at least 20 minutes together. They were like a plus 36, but you didn't see it in that game. Beyond that, Kemba, you see the importance of him every single night he misses.
Yeah, you just don't have reliable options. It's not, Bobby. It's no. I mean, and again, I know everybody's mad that we're criticizing the Jays. As what Joe Sway said earlier, alluding to the Goodman comment. That's part of this. That's the story right now. When you don't have Kemba out there, you really have no one. The pressure is all on those guys to score. It is not. I'd love to see the numbers on the Kemba back-to-backs for what the Jays have shooting percentage wise, because it's so easy to key on them. They're gonna take contested shots. The entire defense is focused on them, so it's always going to be harder in these games. Always going to be harder because you know, with Kemba out there, you usually have 2 scorers on the floor at any given time. Here with these guys, they just got to carry the water, and they did in a couple periods. Like I said, Jaylen in the third, Jayson in the fourth, but all game long, it's all the focus is on them, and there's no other options. There's no options out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not forget Kemba Walker didn't play tonight, so they probably win that game with Kemba Walker. But it just goes back to the fact that they're just not a deep team, and they literally need every guy, like all hands on deck, in order for them to compete, even with teams that aren't even playoff teams, right? So that's why I've been saying that I don't think, you know, just bringing in a depth guy is worth, you know, all these assets, because I just don't know. I just don't know if that's enough to put them over the top. Well, I do know it's definitely not enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, everything you guys said is on the mark. But yeah, I'm not gonna necessarily criticize. I'm not gonna overly criticize them, but I will say that their inconsistency starting games has become a real problem, because, I mean, what was it, like 18 points, I think, coming out of the first quarter, and, you know, it's just not a good way to set the tone. You know, you want to sort of like punch a bad team in the mouth early on. Like, you don't want to get their hopes up and get them in a little bit of a groove. I mean, you know, looking at the Cavs roster, I mean, they had guys performing tonight that, you know, it's just typical. You know, that random dude goes off against the Celtics. I'm not saying it was to that extent, but I mean, a guy like Garland, for example, 25 points. You know, and he was
this is the worst. They got lit up by the worst offense in the NBA.
Oh right. God. You also get
it's 15. You know,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing. And they let it happen. I mean, that's the thing is, you know, there's no denying that, you know, the Celtics talent-wise, at least at the top, absolutely murders the Cavs. You know, and
this is where it's getting frustrating. They have the talent to defend, don't they? I mean, this is all belief and commitment to that end of the floor. There's not. Well, Kemba is the only guy you would look at and say, "There's a weak link defense."
Well, the Jays.
I was going to say, Bobby, he's been the one that's been crushing on that.
He's the one. Yeah, he has the most commitment and attention to detail. Smart, Brown, and Tatum.
The Jays have regressed horribly on defense.
They really have.
Tatum Brown is horrible.
Is that a superstar thing? That a superstar thing?
That's what worries me now. Is like great. That's what I hate about that. I hate that.
It all goes back to Thompson's comments. My least favorite comments of the year. That we're playing for something bigger. You know, we don't come out and put all that. He started naming teams like Detroit, Sacramento that, you know, are putting all their energy and effort into these games to knock them off, and it's like. That's what it takes in the regular season. Jaylen's effort and ability on the defensive side has been rough. I mean, I remember yesterday there's a couple times where he's up on Mitchell, and Mitchell went by him like he was standing still. I mean, embarrassing breakdown. You saw that stuff with Smart tonight.
And Smart too. I've always said this about Smart. Smart to me is an opportunistic defender, but he's not a great one-on-one defender, and he's not great keeping quicker players in front of him. That's not his thing. That's not what he does. He's sneaky. He's got quick hands. You know, he can trap. He's smart. He's heady. He cuts off passing lanes. He does a lot of good things. He is not he fights through screens. He's tough, takes charges, all of that stuff. He does not keep quick guys in front of him. He can't do it.
You've been saying that for about 2 years now. That's true.
Yes,
it's accurate. It's accurate. Yeah.
It's accurate. I think he's way overrated. He does a lot of great things defensively. He's not a great one-on-one defender. He's not a, slap the floor and let's go. I got you sort of guy. It's just not his thing. Neither is Jaylen, and he should be.
With Smart, I always think it's more the intensity, it's the attitude, it's the effort, it's the, like you said, whether it's taking a charge or getting in the middle of breaking up a screen. It's like the annoying. Aggravating things that scorers can't stand that he does, to the point where in that fourth quarter he gets under your skin. But yeah, I'm with you though. Pure staying in front of someone or one of the quicker guards in the NBA, in an open space, it's not great for Marcus.
So I did some rapid fire research on
those
Kemba situations when he's out, and they have lost 5 straight in those situations now.
Hey, there you go, Bobby.
And you're just about right. So tonight it came down to 11 to 24, 11 to 26. So they were just under 50%. But that Atlanta blowout, it was 20 and 37%. The first Atlanta game that they lost at home, it was 52 and 30. A little better, but Pritchard plays a lot in that game. Detroit lost the Sadiq Bey game. It's 52 and 41. Not bad, but Pritchard plays a lot. And then that Sacramento game, 38 and 42. Not great. It was Tremont Waters on the ball in that game. And it was kind of inconsistent results for him there. So the question seems to be, when Kemba's out, who jumps in that point guard spot? Pritchard had been doing a good job for a while. And I think that's why the offense was hanging on early in the year. So that's something we haven't talked about it a ton, but why is Pritchard out of this rotation?
Well, he wasn't tonight. Yeah. Was he the first guy off the bench?
No.
Well, he's not out of it, but he's not as involved.
He was the first guy off the bench tonight, I think.
He had 18
Bobby
minutes.
asked the wrong question, though. The question is, why is Jeff Teague playing 15 minutes? Like, listen, if you're doing something in that first 7-8 minutes, all right, I'm with you. Ride with him. But, I mean, if he's not giving you much, I didn't understand it down the stretch. He played a lot.
Teague was look, the real test is when in the Kemba games, why does Teague play at all? And this was my rant prior to the game. And again, we got to all get there at this point. What's being gained by Grant minutes, semi minutes? We've been saying this I've been saying this all year. What's being gained? Nothing. Like,
honestly, though,
you have to see. And again, Bobby, you made the Moneyball analogy last game, and some writer picked it up today. I swear,
Really,
I think somebody took it from you. Somebody grabbed it and mentioned it. But you made it last night. It's a good one. I don't know if Danny goes out and trades people, but Danny's got to walk into that office and say, "Brad, I love you, buddy, and I know you're trying to win games, but I really, really, really." You're not going to get fired. It's okay, but you got to start playing. We got to see what we have in Nesmith, Romeo when he comes back, Pritchard. You got to cut the Teague minutes, cut the Grant minutes. If it costs us a game or two, no big deal. We got to see what we have in these guys. And again, because one, they'll either have greater value to you than the guys you're currently playing, and two, you may be developing assets heading into the offseason. Like, you can't go this whole year just trying to win a ball game or two by playing Grant 15, 20 minutes a game, Teague 15, 20 minutes a game. You gain nothing from it.
Yeah, but you don't think Teague, especially in this season, especially against a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, you don't think they're going to make sure he gets at least 10 to 15 minutes just to, I don't know, I don't want to use the word showcase, but just to show people, hey, this guy can give you a little something.
There's no Teague showcase. I mean, a few weeks ago, we thought he was on the bench. He was on the bench completely out of the rotation a couple weeks ago, and we thought he was going to be gone at this point. Right after that deadline that you can actually cut bait with him, which passed a couple weeks ago, we thought like there'd maybe be a buyout guy in here. You'd be dumping him for a roster spot in a trade or something. But is he going to be on the roster all year? I mean, if they don't make a move, that seems like a possibility.
Just play the guys, man. Look, you've got your starting when Smart's back. Your starting five should be the Jays, Smart, Kemba, and Rob. Okay, and I don't want to hear it. Okay, I don't want to argue anymore about it. Okay, it's obvious right now. And then you have Tice. You have Romeo, you have Nesmith, you have Pritchard. And if anybody else plays, that's fine. But that's 9 players. That's all you should be playing, really, at this point. And you get into games later in the year where you need to win or positioning and this and that, of course. And that doesn't mean only 9. That's just the 9 I want to see right now.
Thompson will play, obviously.
And Thompson, of course. That's 10 players. That's more than enough. And it's not like you're sacrificing a lot by playing. You're not like sitting guys who are like, oh, these guys really got to play. Yeah. Semi and Grant don't need to play. You stand to gain so much more by playing and Teague.
But at this point, John, what you're mentioning is a playoff rotation, and they're going to start a playoff rotation in early March. That's the thing here. They can't drive Tatum and Brown 40 minutes every single night, which they've done tonight and then they did yesterday, just to try to scrap out these wins. I think that's what's driven Tatum and Brown into the ground all year. Is they've extended. There haven't been any blowouts this year where those guys can get a rest and sit down and relax. They can't sit out games. They haven't been hurt. Well, Tatum has COVID,
but that's the thing. They should be able to sit out a game, and then you should just let the other guys play. We should have had at least in this season. There should have been.
They can't afford to do that at 20-20.
But you're losing anyway. There should be 2 or 3 games where these are the Nesmith Pritchard games, where they start and they play 35 minutes and the Jays sit. And that automatically, and beyond working them into the rotation for 10 to 15 minutes a night, easy. Where we were with Nesmith before.
What championship contender are you watching? Like, that's a championship contender. Like, that's what the Lakers do.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
That's like what we tell Bobby. Like, they're not going to tank. They're not going to punt. Like, listen, I'm all for like resting a guy. Like everyone in the
league lose anyway, guys.
Except Brett. I know, but it's besides.
How many games did I say sit these guys and they lost them? Quite a few.
Sure. I mean, they should. I think they probably will sit, maybe some guys down the stretch as they do prepare for the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. I mean, this game tonight's not a great example. You didn't have Langford, you didn't have Thompson, you didn't have Kemba Walker.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You don't have all these other guys night in and night out.
Right. So of course you're gonna have minutes are gonna tick up for a guy like Grant or Teague or whatnot, right? So I think they do still want to see what they have in Grant. I don't think they're giving up on him. I hate to say
it.
They're not. I mean, clearly they're not.
There is no option for you guys. You guys hate every single option. And I guess it's fair because there's no great option for this team.
Are we wrong?
If they're gonna stand pat like you guys want them to, Grant's gonna start playing a lot because he's gonna need to be part of that rotation.
Okay, I'll ask you this now: was PJ Tucker worth a first-round pick to you? On this team, is that? Do you?
Maybe.
And again, I recognize first-round picks might turn into nothing. Are you kidding me? You'd give up a first-round pick for PJ Tucker on this team right now to do what?
I would
finish 4 games over 500? What is that going to do for you?
Well, they flipped first-round picks, right? Isn't that how it went? Kind of like they traded a pick for. And
is that it?
I think
that's what you meant by maybe. You may give up a first-round pick.
Oh, Trevor Ariza. Bobby's so upset about that.
Just because the cost is so low. All you hear from the Celtics is the prices are high around the league. And then you see a second rounder and Myers Leonard get that done. I'm not saying Trevor Ariza would change the Celtics, but it just goes to show there's certain moves, there's certain swap outs that you could do on this roster here if you're willing to give up picks. And that's why I keep going back to picks.
PJ,
what are you doing with those?
0.0 difference.
Hey, let's see how he does on the Bucks because I think it's pretty evident he hasn't committed to the Rockets this year, and they had to send him home because of that. Although there's a case that he could be done. He was pretty bad this year.
Dude, that guy's got a YMCA body. He makes Grant look good.
I mean, Danny's pretty much already said that he knows that they're further away than what bringing in a bench guy is going to do. So he's not going to make a trade like that. He's pretty much told you that. He goes on the radio and says yeah, we're probably not going to do that.
We're game though. Contenders. Yeah, because there is a case that one of those guys would be better than one of the Celtics bench guys. Certainly Teague, as we toss his name around.
Yeah.
How many different guys would you like to swap out Teague for? Point guards in particular. Think of swapping out Teague for George Hill. And we're going to get into smaller names at this point because we're
Who's doing that?
Thunder want a lot of picks. Just start sending those picks out.
It's exhausting. Talking about these trades. Who's going to take...
I got a whole bag of ideas back here.
Who's going to take Grant or Teague from you? This is like I said, these are WEI.
The Thunder just took Myers Leonard.
This is a WEI collar trade.
Strictly for cap purposes.
There's a reason Trevor Ariza is on his 10th team, guys, okay?
Yeah, he's old.
Desperation move, though. That's what it is.
I saw him in the locker room probably about a year ago, right before the pandemic ended, and he wasn't playing with that Blazers team, and he was just kind of walking around looking like a coach. I was like, is this guy still playing?
He's like Haslam, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's the new Haslam.
I mean, he was on that 2009 Lakers team. He's been around forever.
Wow. I covered that series.
No, the Magic Lakers series.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I thought you were talking. 2009.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Man.
Anyways.
You really crazy about Ariza? I'm kind of surprised.
No, I think what Bobby's saying, Bobby's not really crazy about.
No, hold on. I should reference that by saying after
I'm taking 30.
Our Thaddeus Young conversation. After our Thaddeus Young conversation, I'm surprised.
So Thad Young's a name I dug a little bit on today around Bulls circles, and if you look at the standings, the Bulls are a game behind the Celtics, and after tonight, depending on how the Bulls game went, I mean, they could be a half game back of the Celtics. So why are the Bulls selling to the Celtics when they might be better than the Celtics? I mean, particularly offensively, the Bulls have a top 10 real deal offense. They fully believe they're going to make these playoffs with Billy Donovan in there and Zach LaVine playing at a near all-NBA level. So Thad Youngtree might be dead because the Bulls might be better than the Celtics.
Right. I mean, you don't when those Thad Young rumors were kind of coming around, nobody was anticipating the Bulls and the Celtics like flipping, spots, I guess, in the standings, right? If the Bulls are all of a sudden going from a pretender to a team that's trying to make the playoffs, then maybe you're right. Maybe they're not trying to be sellers. Maybe they are going to stand pat and try to build something.
Let me put this in perspective right now, because this is where the Celtics are. They are tied with the Hawks for the 6th seed. So they're in the 7th seed with the tiebreaker. And they're a half game up on the Knicks, who are the 8th seed. And then the Bulls are just a game and a half back. They end up losing tonight. So they are legitimately on the edge of the playoffs. If you're that 7 or 8 seed this year, right, you're playing in that play-in round. So you might not even get into the playoffs if you're in that 7 or 8 seed. That's where this team is right now.
Look, right now, I'm not going to get hung up. I'm not going to get too hung up on like a game or two. I mean, it's ahead of you, and they're the 4th seed. So, I mean, really anything can change. But your point being, there's a lot of teams sort of with a chance to make these playoffs. So you might even have less sellers than you typically would. I don't know. I mean, even the Cavs. I mean, as bad as they are, they're not out of the playoffs. Even
they're further out of it than some of these teams.
Yeah, but Bobby,
like
a week ago, the Heat were like 11th.
Yeah, no, you can turn around, but I don't envision that being the Cavs. I don't envision that being the Wizards. But there are teams like the Raptors, like the Bulls, who you could easily see making the playoffs. And at this point, like, I don't want to go here, but could those teams overtake the Celtics?
Yes.
Like, do we have to start thinking about the Celtics maybe not making the playoffs? Is that a possibility here?
I think that's a conversation we'll have after the deadline, after the trade deadline.
Definitely a possibility, though. I mean, think about it. They're one injury away from being.
They're a legit injury away for that happening. Yeah.
John's like, what did I walk into? What conversation?
At that point, what happened? And what's the difference between making the playoffs and losing in that play-in round?
Another Aaron Nesmith.
Yeah.
Another 14 pick and another shot at a Nesmith type player.
So right now the Celtics would be picking 16th. So they can start sinking below that.
That's a James Young.
Everyone pay very close attention to the March Madness starting tomorrow, because
I only watch when the Celtics have a good pick.
Right.
Here we
go. You might have a better pick than you think.
All right. While I was gone, I did check in, and Rob Williams' leg has not fallen off despite the minutes that he played tonight.
That's what's up.
How was the knee? Was it a knee injury tonight?
Shocking.
I don't know. What did it look like to you?
It
was the hip, right, Bobby?
Weird. Brad was fine putting him in.
It looked like a little hyperextension situation, but he seems fine.
Yeah, he got back in there and played the closing
stretch. Not only did he seem fine, can we just appreciate that stat line again, real quick? 13 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks.
Yeah, it's actually 27 minutes. That's the second most he's ever played.
Second
most of the season. Are you guys happy yet? Because this is it right here. This is what you want.
It's not a matter of happiness at this point, Bobby.
I was happier. Yeah, I was.
Who would not be happy with this over 30 minutes? Like what?
Right.
What more can the guy? I mean, he literally is almost. I mean, what more can he do? That sequence there when he was like freaking Ed Reed playing free safety, when he was trapping and then releasing back towards the basket and picking off passes and blocking shots. Who have you ever seen do that before?
Who does that?
Was like
Joe Russell.
That was unbelievable, that stretch. Unreal. Belichick would be like, oh my God, he was unbelievable. Just the awareness to be able to jump out the trap to get back in the play. I mean, that was unbelievable there. Everything they did, the block shots, the assists, again, big
down the stretch too. I mean, he had nice hands at the rim.
I think we all got to pitch in, and we're gonna all pitch in and get John a Time Lord jersey. Put Time Lord on the back of it.
I'm sick of playing the game that we fight over that, because I do want to legitimately give him some props for the strides that he's made, and that's rebounding. He's one of the best permanent rebounders in the NBA at this point. I didn't think he was that good of a rebounder last year, and particularly his rookie year. He didn't box out. He was just always going for the ball. The traps, there was a great trap against Utah, and then once they started pressing tonight, he was so active in space. So he's not just that rim protector anymore. He can get out and defend some shots. I thought he got out to the corner well tonight, and you're starting to see the things that make him such a great defender at this point. So it's great to see him getting more minutes. It's great to see him earning more minutes and trust and all that stuff. And this is just what keeps creeping with him, and I know it has nothing to do with the injury concerns, but the minute he hits the season high, he takes a mean spill, and he's in the locker room for 5-10 minutes. There's just all this injury stuff around him that gets so concerning once you finally start to unlock the promise of him. I'm thrilled he came back, because that was legitimately scary when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like, at this point, it's hard to say he needed to play more in order to win. I'll continue to be baffled about what any hesitation. I mean, Tice played less than Rob tonight. Tice couldn't have had less of an impact on tonight's game. I mean, it's
three fouls, 2 turnovers, and 0 points.
1 field goal attempt. I mean, I every night we see like this, I'm baffled why it continues to be a conversation. You have a guy who literally looks arguably like the best player on the court at times, and we're arguing about whether are we playing him too much? Play the F out of him, man. Like right now you're dying for impact players. So I mean,
you want to win, right?
Yeah. Every time you see glimpses, it's great. But this isn't an I told you so Rob game. It's just another wow, this was another really good Rob. You're just seeing more. You're seeing him do more and more things. And he's threatening. He's not there yet. He's threatening to start posting guys up. You see him kind of looking for it a little bit. He's trying to catch. He's thinking about going to the basket a little bit and just going up and over with a little baby hook or something. If he gets any of that, almost there, any of that in his repertoire, and an absolutely just quick trigger on a 12-foot baseline jumper, if he gets it out there, that's going to be really interesting to see. Those are the next steps of offensive evolution, where he's not just waiting for lobs and rebounds and stuff.
The first Rob post up.
John got goals for Robin already. He's setting goals.
He might be tradable now.
They make it
for Vucevic?
NFT. They make it into an NFT, and it goes for $10 million. The first Rob post up.
Yeah.
So I saw that against the Rockets. So he was catching in the post, turning and dunk. It was kind of like a Dwight Howard post move, but it worked, and he was able to dunk on a few guys with possession plays in the post, and that's something I had never seen from him before. So I see that as well, John. The passing is through the roof. His passing is, frankly, the most impressive thing about him. You wouldn't expect a guy who plays his role to be able to dish in the short roll.
He's a daring passer too. Really tight windows. I mean, he's a very clever guy. The way he sees it, he tries to squeeze it in. He even had one in the second half that resulted in a kick. But again, he sees that little seam or a little lane, and he's like, I got it there. I mean, I'm not saying Walton yet, but I mean, that. He's a really, really good passer. Yeah.
Tough thing is they lost his minutes by 13. So this is all I'm pushing back on. It's all I've ever pushed back on with you guys with him, because I love him. There's nothing to hate about this guy. He is a joy to watch. He's a substantial prospect. He was the steal of that draft probably at 27. But I just never believe that if you push him to 30 minutes, this team suddenly becomes like the 2 seed in the East, and it's the only thing wrong here, and that it's the most obvious move that they can make.
But Bobby, we just want to see him progress. Like John wants to see him check those boxes.
And play with the starters. Run with the ones. Okay, what happened yesterday? When you didn't win some of the Rob minutes, because the Utah bench absolutely destroyed the Celtics bench. And Rob was a victim of that. Plus minus is a shit stat because it lacks context. It's a team stat as much as it is an individual stat. Sometimes you can point to a guy and be like, oh, but more often than not, it has to do with the unit that you're playing with and what's happening at that point in time. So it is, look. Sometimes we'll point to it and say, oh, he was plus this and, in our favor. But the reality is
It looks better when you provide context. Yeah.
Yeah, you need context with that stat. There's no question that Rob's impact in his minutes is substantial. Oh, I don't care if he ends up a minus 13 in this. His minutes were.
Well, it's just my
impactful.
point that once he starts playing higher leverage minutes against better players, with that starting unit in particular, is what we saw against Utah.
It unlocks them. It unlocks their.
Well, it unlocks them, but it's not going to be the most overwhelming impact anymore. And where you started to lose a little bit with him since they've been mixing and matching the bench is him and Pritchard had a pretty good thing going on with that bench unit against opposing ones, and him and Smart haven't completely been able to replicate it in the Utah game. And then tonight, Pritchard's sharing minutes with Teague a little bit. So they don't have consistent lineups, and that I think hurts everybody involved. It's not a necessity, but I never think it's a good thing. They can't commit to anything on any given night. Personnel's missing. Guys aren't reliable. It's tough.
Another reason why I think we want to see Rob, and I think why a lot of people want to see Rob, is when he's out there. I mean, and this is one of the questions I had about him going into the season was, is he checked in? Is he fully invested? Is he going all out? This season, I feel like he has been. I mean, I'm seeing a lot out of him. Not.
This was a really good week for him.
But mentally, and like honestly, that I think that's the issue a lot of fans have with this Celtics team is there's not enough of that. There's not enough guys who look fully engaged for 48 minutes or for the time that they're out there. That's my takeaway for one of the reasons why people want Rob out there. And in a game where Kemba Walker isn't out there, to me, Kemba Walker is the leader of this team. He sets the tone. He's got the positive energy. You see the effort on both ends. And when he's not out there, I think there's a noticeable difference in energy on both ends, in like the idea or the feeling that these guys really want it, and I think that's what really bothers a lot of fans is watching them just, sleepwalk on defense and just chuck shots on offense and, then take an L. The hell is so damn funny.
I know why John's laughing. No, it's not that. But no, that's a good.
We know what Nick
laughing at some comment somewhere.
Yeah. But no, that's a good point, Jimmy. No, it is. No, seriously. But I think honestly,
no, screw you guys. Screw you guys. No, don't patronize me. Don't patronize.
I'm not. I'm with you.
Not you, buddy.
You know what?
Hear me out. The difference is that with Kemba's out there, you're putting teams' defenses on their heels. Like that's the difference. I mean, whether he's killing or not, more lately. He's been killing it more times than he was before when he first, came back from injury. But when he's attacking the rim, when he's pulling up with that 3-point, it puts the defense in a space where they're not comfortable. And I think a lot of the times that's when Jayson Tatum, whether it's Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown, they get better looks that way in transition, and the offense flows better when Kemba's out there.
No, I get that. To me, it's sometimes it's the effort, or it's like the sulking, and it's just the not playing defense. I think it's a little contagious, and Kemba does lead the team in smiles, and may even lead the league in smiles. On top of it all,
well, the tough thing about Kemba,
the smile stack.
Kemba's been so limited all year, whether it's these back-to-back. So even the fact that he can't run 39, 40 minutes with Brown and Tatum on nights like this, I thought he was so critical with his facilitation, with the pressure he took off the Jays in a ball handling sense. And even what you mentioned, Jimmy, the fact, or Joe Sway just mentioned it, that he's a threat. Teams take him seriously until the day he's out of this league. That dribble, step back, those type of moves, defenses are going to appreciate that and bite on it. So that was such an important part of last year's team, his ability to play every single minute with those guys and have them, all three of them on the floor together. And the more I think about this team this year, whether it's the exhaustion that's set in on the Jays, the Hayward loss, Kemba's injury status, the depth, like this is just such a brutal circumstance for this team this year. And it's been a worst case scenario on all fronts. And I think all the little things like that, guys moving in and out of the lineup, Kemba's 5-minute gap there with the starters that he can't sustain with them, all that stuff is just adding up, and they have really had such a small margin for error that I think through mental fatigue and maybe even like a disbelief in this team to some degree, they're losing more of those close games. I mean, look at Utah. Look at how that game ended. They're losing those games because of all these things that have piled up on them. And I think that they just lack this mental edge, 2-3 plays a night that could swing more of these games in the other direction. And I think what you see with the lack of pace, the urgency, getting out in transition, they don't do that kind of stuff enough. That says all of that to me more than anything else. Like, they could take advantage of more of these misses, more of these turnovers that they draw, but I don't know. They just feel slow. And I think Jaylen Brown said that after last night's game. They're slow to react. Like, things happen and they don't react fast enough to it. They're just moving slowly, and mentally they're a little slow this year.
Isn't
that what you see on the screen? Like, they are uninspiring to watch.
So uninspiring.
Yeah.
We were texting.
Oh my God.
It's a hard team to root for right now. You know, there's no fight.
And it's not because they're not good enough. And that's why I advocate a trade so much. What would pump this team up more than a guy
They
coming
might
in?
just
Remember,
not be good enough.
well, remember Jay Crowder, Jimmy? You mentioned this a couple shows
Yeah.
ago. He comes in after that trade. That team was what, like 14-26 at that point, over 10 games under 500. And he comes in and just starts scrambling everywhere, freeing up Isaiah in the pick and roll with his screens, hitting threes. If Harrison Barnes came in the door and started giving them that for 25, 30 minutes a night, don't you think that would wake up this team a little bit and say, all right, we got what it takes?
This whole the team mentality sucks. It just
I know what you're saying, Bob. That is contagious.
So that's the difference in dialogue we're having right now. And that's why I didn't like when Gorman came out and Ainge came out and they're like, oh, and even Jeff Source and the whole thing around that the Jays can't get this done. They're in an impossible situation, and I understand why it's wearing away at them physically and mentally. And those guys need a break. You guys admit as such. They need not only a night off, they need a guy who can take the ball, make plays for them, and make it easier for them. I know you want to hold them up to a Hall of Fame standard and say, if they're this great, they should be able to figure this out. But they're not LeBron James, and I don't think anyone was disillusioned that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum were LeBron James are ever going to become that.
Well, there's only one LeBron James, so no one.
And he's the only guy that can bring Mo Williams and Semi. Imagine LeBron with this team. Semi Ojeleye would probably be scoring like 15 points a game.
LeBron would carry this. The Celtics would be in first place in the East if LeBron was on this team. He's done that with the Cavs multiple times.
Yeah, and again, we're not comparing anybody to LeBron, but I mean,
no,
it's again, I you know, every time we have this conversation, and you know, you're critical of the Jays. It's only because
the standard's high.
The standard is high. We keep saying it. It's if they were different guys. There are players out there right now who could lead this supporting cast to a better record than this. There is. It's a fact.
I hate the front office mentality. You didn't give this team enough, so it falls on Brad criticism-wise, and you start blasting the players because they're not making the most out of the bad situation you handed them. I just think it's been so unfair what the Jays have gotten this year. And you know what? They need to be better on defense. I fully agree with you guys on that front. But
I just can't get there. Honestly, like, fine. Their depth is not great past like 7 or so. But
four.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about 2 all-star players. Kemba Walker, a fringy all-star and an all-star starter last year. Marcus Smart, that some people, ESPN had rated as their 38th best overall player in basketball heading into this season. You know, like, and Robert Williams.
It's top heavy. It's always been top heavy.
And Robert Williams, who, you know, Daniel Tice, who you like a lot, Bobby. Robert Williams, who's obviously playing, outstanding basketball right now. A couple of contributions from other guys. It's enough to be better than 20-20. I think we're giving them too much rope. And Tristan Thompson. Okay. You have professional basketball players on this team. It's not the best cast they've ever had, but give me a break. It's not like it's like Jayson, Jaylen, and 5 Grant Williams. That's not who they're playing with. There's enough talent on this roster to be way better than 20-20, and I think it's a total cop-out when we say that I feel so bad for what the Jays have been given. They absolutely have enough on this team to be better than they are.
So this is interesting to me because they have 3 centers, and you were right, John. You said it very early in this season that they shouldn't have had 3 centers on this team and that mid-level shouldn't have gone to another center because they're missing a wing. there wasn't a great wing out there. We saw Jay Crowder got more money than the mid-level, I believe. Yeah. And it was like Torrey Craig and guys like that. There weren't great wings out there. But they need a guy at that 4 spot, whether they're going to go double big or whether they're going to keep spreading it out wing heavy. And I think they can succeed either way if the right personnel is there. So that's where you maybe have to start thinking about LaMarcus Aldridge. And I know they're interested in him. I don't think any of us are thrilled about it. But if you could replace Grant's minutes, Semi's minutes with LaMarcus Aldridge, it'd be awkward. I think you'd still have some of the double big issues there. But that's a real deal 4. He can space the floor a little bit. I think he's just been kind of sulking along with the
cost?
in a similar way. Nothing. No buyout.
Money.
It's buyout.
Yeah, he's not coming here.
I think the 3 teams.
Why the hell would he come here?
Well, they're on the 3 teams interested in him. I think it was Portland, Boston, and one other team. So the interest isn't going to be strong for him because he hasn't looked great at all this year. So that's the kind of guy like Greg Monroe a few years ago that you maybe take a flyer on.
Oh,
Watch the Nets get him. Watch the Nets get him.
Greg Monroe was so depressing.
The Nets are looking at Joel Embiid.
He was buyout guy.
You know what? We'll take Marcus.
We cut him like 4 times during the year, and I didn't even know he was gone. I was like, oh, he's gone. I was like, he's here again.
So my point is, how can we look at the situation and say, oh, there's nothing they could do to improve? Like, no addition's going to help this team. They need help so badly that who knows? Like a minor fringe guy, and I know like JJ Redick's been thrown around. Those guys can make a substantial impact.
They could be better.
I agree.
Somebody could be better today. They could be better today than they are now.
Somebody can help, but is it going to help them enough? Is really?
They might not be conference finals good. They're better than 20. There's better talent than 20 and 20. I'm blaming the players.
No, we know that they started 8-3.
So yeah, everybody here desperately, like I said, and that's the one place I don't think we're being too hard on Jaylen and Jayson. They should have been able to lead this cast of characters to better than 20 and 20. Okay, so they're not doing it. Everybody here wants to kill Brad. I can't do the Brad conversation because again, it's a hard one to have. You know where I land on it. I'm not. I don't know.
You know what they want Brad to do at this point? Go out and hit 5 3-pointers and swing. What else can he do?
What I'm saying is, if you get to the point that you acknowledge that the talent is good enough to be performing better than they are, then you look at. I believe so. I believe so. I believe so. I believe the talent on this team is that they're better than 20 and 20.
Yeah, I think most people would. Nobody would be disappointed as they are in the comments section right now, right? If they all thought that, oh, well, this is as good as they are. This is what we expected. Nobody expected this going into the season. Let's be real.
Yeah, I guess you have a point there.
That's what I mean. Is like this is still even by. I was very worried about this season because I thought the Hayward loss was going to be significant. I didn't think they did the right things to address any needs in the offseason. So it was just going to be – and then there was the Kemba concerns. I thought they'd be worse. But this is – by worse, it means they went to the conference finals last year, and if they were healthy, they'd probably get to the finals. So in my mind, this is a finals team that would have been worse this year by a little bit. They're worse by a lot of bit. They are way worse. This is a team that absolutely was going to the finals last year if Hayward doesn't get hurt. And they are battling for a playoff spot. It's disgraceful at this point. It's disgraceful.
Right. And I mean, I remember before the season started, I was not super pumped about their roster, but even I didn't think that, the playoffs would be in question. I didn't put them at the top of the East, but I put them, I think we all had them around like 3 or 4 in the East, depending on how a couple other things shook out. And now it's like we just talked about earlier, like they could be in the outside looking in like a game or 2.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question for real. If you go by it, okay, Tristan, we can debate whether or not he's been what was advertised. I think a little less. Let's call it a wash, roughly the type of player you thought that you were getting. What's actually interesting, if you break down this team, like they lost Hayward, obviously that's a big deal, but both Tatum and Brown, at least statistically, they've raised the level of their play. Kemba Walker in his last 10, 15 games has been pretty flat over what he was, pretty close to what he was last year. Rob has made a huge leap. Tice is still Tice. and Pritchard gave you something you didn't exist. You could actually argue there were more positives you weren't counting on from this season than there are negatives.
It comes and goes though, night in and night out.
I know, but still,
like piles up, but
still, you got a couple things going in your favor you didn't count on to begin the year, which is Pritchard being a rotation-ready, off-the-bench point guard, and Rob Williams being center one on this team. You didn't count on either of those things, and you have those two things going in your favor on top of a team that has two.
It's been a month and a half.
Players, and they're still 20-20. Again, it's just what.
The problem is it's coming in spurts. Tice had a 3-week stretch where he was outstanding. Pritchard obviously shot 44% from three to start the year, and he's probably more like 33, 34 for the last month.
It's effort and it's focus, and that stuff, you put it on the players, but you also put it on the coach. You can't get a team to come out and play with effort. That's a problem. It's a problem. Okay. And I know the Brad defenders are out there every night like, oh, well, Brad couldn't, I guess they expected Brad to hit that three or Brad to hustle. No, but your team doesn't show up and scores 38 points against the Cavs in the first half and gives up 117 to the worst offense in basketball. That's effort. It's effort. It's
effort.
That looks ill on the coach when your players come out there and do this.
Over and over
again. Right. Yeah. And that's the problem there is that's
what
you got. It's not Brad's a smart guy or a good X's and O's guy or a good coach. The team is continually coming out and laying eggs like this. At some point you need accountability.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. They're not gonna fire him no matter what. So that's another area of stagnancy. Maybe that would change things. I don't believe it would, but if you really think that would nail this team and get them going.
I don't know, but you're starting to look, you want to put your finger on what's going on, and when you see this, you get frustrated. Yeah.
I don't think you do that mid-season with this team, unless something really bad.
You don't do anything this season. You don't do trades. You don't change the coach. You just go to how many games are they playing this year? 72. That's what 30, 36 and 36. That's where they're gonna finish.
Sometimes the best plan is to. Sometimes it's just look. No general manager is going to come out and tell fans who you want to pay to. In a normal world, you want to pay to go see games, and you want to support you, and you want to care. You're not going to tell them. We gave up on this season months ago. But the reality is they might have given up on this season months ago. And that happens.
Mm-hmm.
This absolutely is a thing in sports. They assess the roster and they say there's no friggin' way we're doing anything to improve this team. We're riding out the storm, and whatever happens, and we're going to reset. And that's part of life. That's part of sports. But they don't tell you that. They're
Can you imagine
that one owner is just telling Danny, see, I told you, Teague's trash, man. I told you.
Can you imagine if for 32 more nights we have to do the up and down where Semi hits 6 threes one night and the whole team's fixed, and then the next night it's just furious comments fire.
This is why I don't do apology cams, okay? Because one day later I'm gonna want it back, okay?
Oh, this season, if they just keep riding this wave, it's gonna be a long ride to the finish.
This wave.
Because we know what's going to happen. They're going to go 36 and 36 and lose in round one. That's what's going to happen. We can predict it now.
Yeah, well, now that the Heat have Ariza, definitely.
They better try to avoid that.
Forget Ariza.
They have to do whatever they can to avoid that matchup. So
beyond Ariza, they're 9-1 in their last 10.
Yeah.
They're getting healthy.
Yeah.
Jimmy post-COVID, they've been great.
Yeah,
no, Jimmy's back. That's what it is.
When Jimmy came back, they got good again.
And Tatum's still talking about COVID. So
when was the last time he said something?
I think it was yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he still doesn't feel himself. Yeah.
It's not good.
And that's another factor in this season. It's almost like the Patriots. Can you put it all on Cam getting COVID? But there was a lot of weird stuff that went wrong with that team that you say it was just not only were there roster issues with that team, but a lot of weird stuff happened, and it was a similar COVID year where you just say, wow, a lot of bad stuff happened this year, and maybe that's just a
Yeah.
circumstance of all that.
The GM of that team screwed up royally too last season.
But so that's why I don't like firing Brad, because I think this year is so weird. And I've said this across sports, frankly. I mean, in college, coaches have been fired left and right. Teams are doing buyouts. You look at those situations and you say, this is a weird year. So you're going to make these drastic moves, change your front office, change your coach situation because of a weird year where just nothing's normalcy. That's why, that more than anything is why I'm against firing Brad, because I think he has a proven track record over 7 years before this of coaching outstanding. And this year, just because it got wacky, injury struck, COVID hits, they have an awful schedule, you're going to fire a coach over that? It's not. Now, if they miss the playoffs, we'll see.
Right,
that would be unacceptable.
Rivers. All right, Doc, tell him.
Oh my gosh,
you got canned. But that's
I don't think they're gonna.
No, I agreed with. I didn't
doing
like the Clippers firing Doc. I thought that was a bad move.
That was like verbatim what he said. Literally, that was his speech.
No, yeah, that was kind of where I pulled that from too. Like a lot of people have been talking about that.
But again, you know what, Bobby? You know what, Bobby? If Doc lost that locker room, or if they tuned him out, nobody was really saying, "Oh, Doc can't coach anymore." He just couldn't coach those guys anymore for whatever reason, and he's doing a hell of a job in Philly. So again, I mean, you might not have agreed with it, and maybe it felt unfair, and maybe Doc was pissed about it, but I'm pretty sure he's okay with how it turned out, and I'm pretty sure maybe the Clippers probably are too.
Here's the thing. Here's an underrated aspect of coaching, okay? Your coach is the leader, okay? You're there and you're used to things going a certain way. And then one day they're not going that way. And you look around for answers. And when the guy doesn't have the answers, even if it's not his fault, and even if there's nothing humanly possible he can do to conjure answers, and you keep going out there and then you walk off with your head hanging low after losing to the Cleveland Cavaliers, you start to lose some faith. That stuff happens. It's real. You're looking for, like, make this better. You know, do the thing that you do, right, which is coach and make us better. And when the results aren't better, even if it's really the personnel or a bunch of other issues that don't have to do with the coach, you start to lose faith in the message. It happens, you know, like it could happen to anybody, even the best coaches out there. Like, why does Bill Belichick work? He's an asshole. He's tough to play for and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you're rewarded because you're like, wow, he did put us in the best position to win. But when you're consistently playing bad basketball and you don't feel you're in the best position to win, you wonder, is it the
you end up like Matt Patricia?
Yeah, right. I mean, it doesn't work when you're not. And again, it's not. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying players sometimes we use the term tune out. I don't know if that's the right word, but sometimes he doesn't make the impact necessary to push the team in the right direction. I don't know if that's happened, but
that's a tough phrase.
Well, to keep the comparison going with Doc real quick, I just want to get this in there. You know, one of the quotes that stood out to me. One of the quotes that stood out to me, like a week removed, was when he said, "Listen, when the conversation is being had about if the team is better moving forward or how can he fix things, that's when you know it's time to go." So, I mean,
I keep yawning.
Brad could reach that point at the end of this season. I mean, we talked about that, you know, and I think Brad could be in a space where, or at least Danny could be in a space where he thinks, listen, if we're having this conversation and if it's getting to a point where we're not quite sure or Brad's not quite sure what the next big move is to fix things, then that's a conversation to have where, okay, well, the next step is who's a potential replacement. But I don't know if the Celtics have reached that point. Again, that's an off-season conversation. I mean, we got to see this team through.
Yeah, to continue that comparison, if you're like the Clippers and you just move to the next guy down the bench.
We started it too, right, Jimmy? I don't know. Bobby did. Bobby started.
If you just move to the next guy down the bench, Jay Larranaga, what's going to change here?
Oh, man.
Ty Lue hasn't changed too much about the Clippers this year. I know they've had spurts, but they're still an awful fourth quarter team.
I was pretty freaking certain moving from Claude to Cassidy wasn't going to make a difference, and the Bruins immediately played like a different team. You know,
different sport.
I'm saying is sometimes it's a different approach. It's a different mentality. It's just new life. It's something. I'm not saying do it, and I'm not saying Larranaga is the answer. What I'm saying is you may just be in a situation where it just isn't working like we're just looking for some level of accountability. I'm only talking about the effort. When you see the team play dead ass like they have been on too many occasions, you know, I may blame the players first guy, absolutely, but somebody has to be able to get something out of these guys, you know?
All right, well, John, let me ask you this. What about the Indiana University stuff? All that talk, all that noise from the NCAA.
Oh, he's going.
Well, what I mean by that is there effect on the players on that? Are the players thinking to themselves, "Oh, here we go again"?
They probably don't even know what happened.
All right. Well,
I think players are a little bit.
Maybe some of them are like, you know what, Brad? Maybe that's the move for you. You know, and let's go into this Cleveland game and let's play your game plan and see where it takes us. And then at the end of the day, like we've seen so many times throughout the course of the regular season, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum say, 7-point game, fourth quarter. We're just gonna take matters into our own hands.
There's a chance Romeo Langford doesn't even know his old coach got fired. I wouldn't be
players
surprised.
are thinking about the trade deadline before they're thinking about Brad probably right now.
Romeo. All right.
And
Just to
continue
the comparison just a little bit longer. No, I'm just kidding.
The last thing.
What do you have? What?
The last thing on Brad with this phrase.
So basketball.
Tune-out's a hard phrase to hammer down because I think the people say they're executing the plays and they're doing the X's and O's, and even tonight they played the zone pretty well and they did a lot of the things, the press down the stretch. So it's not like they're going out there. 2019, there was a little bit of, and Terry Rozier said that they weren't doing the game plan. They were just doing their own thing out there. I don't think that's the case this year, but on certain nights, are they just like, yeah, whatever, and they tune it out and they're not as committed. I think that's more of a situation we have here where they're not tuned in every night. It's not like 3 weeks ago they said, screw Brad, I'm done with him, and every single night since they've been out on him. I think it's more of an ebb and flow thing.
Like Jimmy said earlier, and this is something I always look out for, sometimes it's what people don't say that's a bigger issue than what they do say. And, you know, you have not heard the, you know, those ringing endorsements and the in Brad we trust sort of stuff. And like Brad's the best coach in the league and he's going to right the ship and we have total faith. Like you don't hear it, which doesn't mean they don't think it, but when you do hear it, it reinforces it. So again, the silence sometimes speaks volumes, you know, you know, and so that you're not hearing tons of that there, but I don't know. It's a tough conversation to have. I always have a different time having it because you don't know deep down what it's like in the locker room. What's the real issue? There could just be problems with select players in there that they can't get to work and do the thing that they want to do. And Brad's banging his head against and Jaylen and Jayson are trying to do everything they can behind the scenes and it's just not working. So it's just not fair. It's a hard one to judge. It really is. So I don't know, but we're past an hour here. We got Sacramento on Friday. It's a school night. Jimmy checked out like 30 minutes ago.
Real quick.
Dude, I can't stop yawning, dude.
I know we touched on it briefly, but what did you guys think of that PJ Tucker trade? Is that gonna do anything?
I don't think it does a thing.
Bro. The better question is, what do we think of that hat on your head, Bobby?
Yeah.
Jeez,
What's that hat say? What's that hat?
Where did you get that hat from?
So people who keep asking in the comments, it's St. Patrick's Day. I got it for buying a Guinness, so I just took it and wore it. I've been wearing it ever since.
Guinness on the hat?
No, it was the restaurant. The bar. Raglan Road. Yeah.
Hey, no free pub. No free pub. No free publicity.
Where is that? Oh, is that in Ireland? Wait a second. Is that in Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, Orlando, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know my bars, man.
Yeah.
Yo, how did you
know my Irish bar?
That? Yeah. What?
Dude,
There's
that's an elite.
That's five of those across the country. What are the chances you nailed that one right there?
That's an elite Irish bar in the Disney World area.
Yeah. What's it called again? Patties? Like other 27 patties across the country?
I got more.
Very nice. Couple other.
So happy
John
for you.
gives zero fucks about this conversation.
No,
I hate St. Patrick's Day.
No,
if it's a Greek holiday, we have to do 45 minutes.
I hate amateur hour drinking holidays. I'm a professional drinker.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'm a professional drinker. This is
a
an
professional drinker. Only one guy has been drunk on the show.
And this is an, and yes, you have.
It's half that, John, for the people who just wear a green shirt and grab some beers.
It's an amateur hour holiday.
If you love Ireland, this is the other half of it.
But I think
tomorrow's my twin's birthday.
It's not the same.
I was dying for them not to be born on this ridiculous holiday where they'd have to go out and celebrate it with these friggin' drunken,
How close was it?
Just hold on, honey. One more day. One more day.
I will say that St. Patrick's Day parade in Boston is a mess. You're right about that, John.
It's a mess.
I went to that once.
The best day in Boston's the marathon.
I went to that parade once, and I said, I went to that parade once, and I said, never again. This is.
Oh,
this
you're
is
a lot of fun. This guy's a blast to hang out with. I used to crush
the float.
I used to crush St. Patrick's Day holiday in Boston. I haven't, obviously, this year and last year we didn't get to, but I understand it. That is a very sloppy day. You have to do it the right way. You have to have somebody has to live there. You have to have a cool house party. You don't want to be stuck in the parade or anything like that. You got the key thing. The key thing, everyone watching who's going to be at the St. Patrick's Day parade next year, you got to know when to leave. You got to know when it's time to go. You start early, you end early. Did I get to? Self-imposed, maybe.
Yeah. just a brief timeout and a couple glasses of water.
Yeah. I got a couple texts.
We mentioned this briefly. I normally don't do this, but I did want to say, because I mentioned the best days in Boston, and one of them is the Boston Marathon. And today, anybody who grew up in Boston has to know who this is. Okay. Yes. So Dick Hoyt passed away
Legendary.
At 80. And again, anybody I grew up on the marathon route. This is every time that they would go by is the most inspiring moment of the race. For anybody who doesn't know, 32 marathons with his son, Rick, who was a quadriplegic born with cerebral palsy, and he ran the marathon 32 times. They did 3 Ironmans. He ran 1 marathon with his son in 2 hours and 40 minutes, pushing the chair. The last one they did was 2014. This was obviously one of the massive highlights of any Boston Marathon. And anybody, if you were here, one of the things that inspired me to run the marathon. Dick Hoyt passed away today at the age of 80. So an inspiring story, a true athlete, a terrific father, and a million different things there. And it just a piece of Boston, if you grew up here, that this is something that this meant a lot. So this one shook me a little. This is one of those where you feel it today. So this was just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Hoyts and Dick Hoyt and anybody who ever experienced that, how special that was. So that was something that happened today.
Great call, John.
That's a good tribute.
Yeah.
I think there's a statue of him too along the route that was put up, some amount of years ago. So you can definitely look that up, and I'm sure you can find it. But when they were racing, and I've been to so many. You're right, John. That's the best day of the year. Talk about a marathon for everybody involved, not just the people running.
I've had 14-hour drinking marathons, and I've run it.
Which one's harder? I don't know.
The drinking from 8 a.m. to midnight might be harder than running it.
Right. And when they're going, that's one of the loudest cheers you hear. The entire.
You would wait for it wherever spot you were in.
You knew exactly where they were. Exactly.
And you would wait for that to happen. And every time you'd get, and I got chills now. You get the chills every time they passed. It was just amazing to see it. Yeah,
it's probably the closest thing you could feel. And if you get to run it, I ran in 2018. And it's the closest thing you can get to actually being in a professional sport event because of the crowd.
Sure.
You get to hear what it's like to be on the floor at TD Garden and have the crowd going nuts. It's special for sure.
Wow, I guess me and Joe Sway have to run it.
You down?
Yeah, I'm retired. I ran it in 08 and 09, and that's it.
I've done 5Ks. That's about it. That's it. That's all my running resume. But no, that's a great shout out, John. The Hoyts actually, when I was in elementary school, they actually visited us, and it was pretty cool because obviously you grow up and you keep seeing them year after year, doing the race, and I just thought it was just so special for them to do that last one after the bombing. And like you said, man, everyone looks out for them, and you hear the crowd. You could tell when they're coming, when they're getting close. And it's actually shout out to Cedric Maxwell. He actually brought that they honored the Hoyts during the broadcast, and Max told a pretty cool story about that too, about how he'd always look out for them every year because he actually didn't live too far from the route, and he would try to check in every year at some point throughout the route.
That's something we've missed the last few years. It's like when are they finally gonna have that marathon again? They keep talking
October.
About
it's coming in October. It's a shorter field, but I mean by that point, there could be people out there. Again, the Hoyts haven't run it for several years, but it just feels like they were there all the time. So that was a tough one. As far as tonight, again, the Celtics lose. There's not a ton to say about it. They're 20-20 on the year. Sacramento on Friday. This is the game where you trap Harrison Barnes at the Garden and you never let him leave.
We get to do more Harrison Barnes talk on Friday.
This is when he pushes locker rooms, guys. You know, you're gonna see it.
Well, we got a little Larry Nance preview tonight.
Yeah, Nance played a nice game. I don't think they're giving him up. I don't think he makes a difference. But again, something for cheap.
Again, what does make a difference mean? He's not going to lead them to the championship, but he would help a lot.
He would help. So that's it. We'll wrap it up for Bobby and his funny hat. And and
Bobby, who's called JFK?
Yeah.
What's that?
Nothing. Looks like he got one of those like old '60s hats or whatever. Like,
you'll see the hair again on Friday.
Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channels.
There's a lot of ways you can go with that hat. That's true.
Bring a friend to the show next time, okay? Thank you guys for joining.